Welcome to Crosspointe.
Welcome to Crosspointe.
Welcome to Crosspointe.
We are an inclusive faith community
seeking to live out the loving, just, and generous way of Jesus.
We are participants in a long tradition
that's less concerned with doctrines and dogma that demand total agreement,
but a life to be lived, enjoyed, and given away to others.
What unites us is a growing awareness that life is precious.
That we are made by love in order to love.
This community is comprised of and affirms the entire human family.
Regardless of race, age, creed,
physical abilities, marital or economic status,
gender identity, or sexual orientation.
So, if you're curious and have come to see,
if you are tired and have come to rest,
if you are grateful and have come to share,
if you are wounded and have come to heal,
if you're joyful and have come to celebrate,
if you are uprooted and have come to belong,
welcome home.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings are mine with 10,000 beside. Faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Hey Crosspointe, thank you for joining us today. I want to share a few brief announcements with you. This Tuesday, June 16th, you're invited to join us for Story Night. We'll be at Fortnight Brewery in Cary for an evening of live storytelling. 6 storytellers from in and around our community will be telling true, personal stories all around this year's theme, free. Now, one question that we get each year is whether you can bring minor children. So please know that that is always a parent's decision to make. But if you haven't been to Story Night, then it's worth noting that these are true stories told by adults for an adult audience. So think of it as thoroughly PG-13 as you decide. Tickets to Story Night are free, but space is limited. So go to crosspoint.org and get your tickets right away. Also, I want to invite you to join us in funding all that this community is able to do by contributing financially. All of it is funded through your generosity. You can give by going to crosspoint.org/contribute, and if it's easy for your personal rhythm, you can set up a recurring donation. If you'd like a link sent to your phone to make this easy, you can text crosspointenc to 77977. From there, you will have some options for how you might choose to give. Finally, if you are joining us online locally and you are able to attend in person, then this next part is for you. I want to encourage you to consider getting plugged in as a volunteer. Now, I know the resistance that might be immediately bubbling up for you when asking you to give your time to yet another thing when you are undoubtedly probably very busy. However, if you will entertain that possibility for just a moment, I want to share with you that volunteering at Crosspointe can become something that allows you to connect more deeply with others in this community towards something that feels purposeful and life-giving. Serving alongside others can really fill up your own cup. And so our hope is that you might consider serving in an area that suits your interests and your personality. Now, if you're like me and you enjoy getting to walk alongside adolescents and teenagers as they navigate middle and high school, then we would love for you to consider serving in Edge on Sunday mornings or serving as a small group leader in student ministry during the school year. Or maybe that's not your cup of tea. But maybe it would bring you a lot of joy and warm your heart to have the opportunity to serve in children's ministry. We have relational opportunities for you to serve with children from birth through 5th grade. And we also need volunteers on Sunday that will help us run all of the technical elements in all of the ministry spaces. So if that sounds like a strength and an interest of yours, we would love to have you. Or maybe you would like to be part of creating a great experience for adults on Sunday morning. That can help you connect with a lot of other people in this community. So you can help make coffee, which is no doubt essential. Or maybe you would like the opportunity to be a warm, friendly, welcoming face, providing help to anyone who might be new as a greeter. This is not even an exhaustive list of all of the ways that you can volunteer in this community. So if you're curious about how you might give your time, I would encourage you to take the next step to volunteer. There is a form online that you can fill out that allows you to communicate to us that you're interested in volunteering at Crosspointe. To fill out that form, you're going to go to crosspointe.org/volunteer. Filling out that form is not a commitment. It just starts the conversation to get a little bit more information about volunteering. Last, I want to say, if you already volunteer in the Crosspointe community, thank you for giving your time, your heart, and your energy to make this thing go. It is not lost on us that this is not possible without you. Thank you, Crosspointe.
to miracles I did not see. From ancient autographs I cannot read. And though I've repented, I'm still tempted, I admit. But it's not what bearing witness is. Prophecy, see the revelation right in front of me. So sick and tired of trying to make the pieces fit, 'cause it's not what bearing witness is. When the gap between what I hoped would be and what is makes me weep for my kids, I take a cleansing breath and make a positive confession. But is that what bearing witness is? Though it may alienate your family and blur the lines of your identity, let go of what you know and honor what exists. Son, that's what bearing witness is. Daughter, that's what bearing witness is.
I heard someone say a while back that they realized that their faith, the peace they had, the sense of wholeness that they had, that had only occurred by having lost pretty much everything, including their faith, over the previous decades. And at first, I didn't really notice it. It just sounded like some run-of-the-mill spiritual comeback story. But as I listened to her, I recognized she wasn't talking about a return, let alone a sales pitch for being, coming back to be neatly tucked back into the approving fold, but something further out, actually. And I recognized that she was really referring to the path so many of us have been taught to avoid. The path that we were taught represented that something had gone wrong. And that avoidance has caused us all kinds of personal and societal problems. So, as the arrest and crucifixion scene approaches at the end of Luke's gospel, we read that Jesus has joined his disciples, his students, who've been with him almost every minute. They're gathered around a table. And it says, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And he did the same with a cup of wine after supper, saying, "This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. But see, the one who betrays me is with me, and his hand is on the table. For the Son of Man is going, as it has been determined. But woe to that one by whom he is betrayed." He's speaking, of course, of Judas. Then they all began to ask one another which one of them it could be who would do this. "Couldn't be me. Is it you? Couldn't be you." Which led to a dispute that arose among them as to which one of them was to be regarded as the greatest. So Jesus is talking about giving his life, his body, his blood, this picture that resonated symbolically on a lot of really high levels, but it's also not a symbol. It's quite literally about his pending murder. It's going to happen within the next 24 hours. They hear this and they start arguing about who should be seen as the top dog. It's the Last Supper, and these guys are fighting about who's first lieutenant. And this wasn't even the first time they'd done it. The Gospel of Mark records, "Then they came to Capernaum, And when Jesus was in the house, he asked them, "What were you guys arguing about on the way? What were you arguing about back there?" But they were silent, for on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. Another time it came up, not as an argument, but you could tell they had been arguing, for this is why this question would have been posed in the first place. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Hey, random Sunday school question, Jesus, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" So Jesus calls a child and put the child among them and said, "Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become like children, not childish, become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever becomes humble like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." This must have frustrated them. They're asking about greatness. Who has ascended? Who's at the top of the hierarchy? And Jesus puts this kid with snot crusted on his cheeks, no ability to debate or do war or anything. And he says, here's your model. There's no way this resolved anything for them. 2 chapters later, Matthew presents us with this scene. It says, "Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee," James and John, "came to Jesus with her boys." I imagine her holding these 2 disciples by the wrists. "And kneeling before Jesus, she asked a favor of him. And Jesus said to her, 'What do you want? What's the favor?' And she said, 'Please declare that these 2 sons of mine will sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom. You know, you get the big throne and then they get the little thrones, but thrones nonetheless.'" There's all kinds of reasons a parent would make this request for her boys, but it reveals that the boys inherited the values they're arguing about all the time. They were raised within this kind of thinking. It's an ingrained familial, social, cultural expectation that makes them argue what they're arguing, just like you and I. A few verses after that, it says, "When the other 10 disciples heard it, they were angry with the 2 brothers for either what their mom tried to pull or what they maybe guessed that they had put their mom up to. Mom, if you ask Jesus this, he'll listen to you. You know, he respects women." But Jesus called them and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles," which means non-Jews, but maybe more broadly, the Roman Empire system, the kingdom that everybody lives under in that moment. "You know that those in power lord it over them, that they control people from their position of power, and their great ones are tyrants over them. It will not be so among you. But whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you must be your slave." So Jesus sharply contradicts this impulse. You want to climb and ascend to power and control and make everything coherent? No. Look instead to the thing that you avoid and dismiss. Look to the child. Look to the servant and the slave. I mean, the language is of course figurative, but the point's pretty direct. Over and over, these disciples desire to rank themselves highly, which is only because they want to know who they outrank, because that person gets to determine what happens. They want to figure out who has achieved the highest standing. What must I do to achieve? What do I have to learn or become to take that position if somebody else has it? And Jesus insists over and over, no. The path goes against the grain of those instincts. Now, I genuinely believe that the disciples are wrong all the time to make us laugh. So we can laugh at them. But don't stop at laughing at them, because we're supposed to be laughing at ourselves. They are us. These stories they're a mirror. And it's not to shame us, but to, when we are ready, show us part of our journey that we will resist and resist and resist until we finally say yes to it. And then when we do that, we'll realize there's no going back ever, and that's good. So let's ask, why are these men fixated on rank and outranking, hierarchy, power? Because this isn't a message about the evils of trying to get a promotion or training to win the 5K and not just get the participation medal. It's more than that. Why are these men fixated on hierarchy and on dominion? Well, let me put it simply. These men are not happy. They are in their depths lacking peace, lacking a kind of wholeness that they will someday have. It's just like most of us. Even if we camp out with Jesus all the time, it's true for us too. There is something deep inside them that is fragmented and anxious, and they're trying to bury it. The world isn't how they want it to be. Their thoughts and their feelings and their beliefs aren't lining up within themselves, let alone with others. So they're trying to get out in front of all of that by turning those feelings into bids for control, for achievement, for systems they can dominate and operate within with clarity. They feel like they're on a path because they're with Jesus all the time, but they're facing backward at best. But think of how they might put it, how they might defend themselves. Well, I just want to be great in God's kingdom. God still is, top dog, sure. I want to be great in others' eyes that way. I want to be right. I want to know and deal only in the truth. I want to help this whole thing, this whole Jesus thing, be as strong and as sure and as impervious to doubt and contradiction as possible. I mean, it all seems noble and reasonable if you think about the greatness that they probably think that they're arguing about. But there's kind of a giveaway in the constant arguing. And the fact that Jesus never affirms any part of their arguing. That's how we know that regardless of how noble or reasonable or backed by Bible verses, no matter how noble it seems, they're on the wrong path. They are trying to defy a kind of gravity, just like you and I try. So to get a sense of what this gravity is, let's sit with this for a second. The deeply unresolved thing inside of these disciples, the profound sense of offness in the basement of their being, it is not, as we read, finding automatic resolution by just hanging out with Jesus all the time, hearing his stories from the front row, serving people at, shoulder to shoulder with Jesus of Nazareth. It's not helping. Shouldn't that make us stop and go, oh, wait a second? Because the Gospels tell stories of people who, people bleeding for years, and then in a second they're healed with a single touch. Blind and deaf and paralyzed people made whole in just seconds. But then the disciples, they're spending every moment of every day with him. They eat the same food, they sleep under the same trees, they squat behind the same boulders, hour upon hour, day upon day, and there's something inside them that has yet to be touched, healed, reconciled. They still have this thing inside them that makes them want to ascend, to grow taller, become more and more certain and sure and in control all these days and weeks. And they're arguing, which one of us deserves highest marks? Which one of us does everybody else have to listen to? And so here's the simple, incredibly difficult, incredibly unattractive, almost impossible to form churches around truth. Not all growth is upward. In fact, I am coming to learn at this point in my life, most of it isn't. Now, part of this is so utterly commonsensical that it will seem silly to explain it, but it's the other part, the trajectory, that we haven't learned as a gift. We've learned it was a curse, an evil, an omen that things are going wrong, a thing that we should fear, and it is not. This framework is not original with me, but because it's so inevitable for every single one of us, wiser folks than I have already laid it out in different ways over the years. So I am just stealing this and serving my version of it as I have come to understand it over the years. There are three general movements to life. And so I'm talking about lots of things, but you're going to notice I keep coming back to faith. I don't think of faith as like one of the things, but because it undergirds so many things. But this does touch every domain of our life. The first movement is the one we already know that's common sense, and it's our childhood. This is when we are young, when everything is actually about growing, gaining, and ascent. Our bodies grow bigger and stronger, and that happening is evidence that things are going exactly how they're supposed to. The first phase of our life is about ascent. So we're adding knowledge, we learn to read, and then we read, and we take in new information, and we sort it, we learn to apply it. We're learning and developing skills, learning how things work, and larger concentric circles every day. We're adding knowledge and wisdom and experience. We're like an empty library where 100 new books get donated every day, filling up our internal shelves with learning. Completely normal. So again, we're talking about faith as young people. We construct and have constructed for us a faith identity. So it's true in every way. We learn, add to the libraries, all of the values, the truths, the relational experiences. And as we get older, we're adding to ourselves all of these things. And then we also begin to add our own insights and our own ahas about the things that we've learned about life and the world, faith, God, our siblings, everything. All of this absorbing of information, expectations and experiences and rules, how we, in the first phase of our lives, this is how we form a self, an identity. So this first phase, some call order or orientation or construction. This is when we were constructed. In this first phase, that is our entire childhood, and then somewhat beyond, we are constructing, organizing a self. Beliefs, ideas, and this ordered, constructed self is a direct and indirect result of the environment, the people and the place that we come up in. This is good. This is totally normal, totally necessary. We can't really have a life or a personality or personhood without this. We have to go through this first phase of construction. But there will come a moment, or a series of moments and experiences, where you will bump up against things in the world that don't fit. This is the centerpiece of all kinds of movies and books. Wait a minute, this is not coherent. This is contradictory. It can even feel like, wait a minute, I have been lied to about this or that. They told me all swans are white. And then late in high school or in college or in your 20s sometime, right there in the water one day, you see a black swan. It cannot be. You resist it. You try to read books to explain it away. You pretend like you didn't see it. But there it was, a black swan. You were told those people always blank. Then you become friends with them and you realize, no, they're not. They're not that at all. Someone you admired for years, they turned out to be entirely human and jarringly disappointing. You took a comparative religion class and wow, can't unlearn the things you learned in that class. Or you realize the thing that you were taught was actually made up by somebody who, maybe even for good intentions, never had that thing challenged because they lived in this little sphere that was insulated. I mean, there's a million ways this can happen, but it will happen. And this is deconstruction. This phase you already know well, but you might not realize how necessary and even good it is, because this deconstructing what was has been framed for us as a thing to fight and fear, to take as evidence that something has gone terribly wrong. And it feels terribly wrong. Deconstruction feels like all you've learned and made an identity out of, the basis on which you belong to family and friends, your tradition, whatever, like it got sick. There's a disease. It's been attacked. It's coming apart. And so it feels like something's gone wrong. And one big reason is because we were all taught that growth is upward. Especially in the Christian tradition, we are supposed to constantly be growing as people, as churches, adding. We were taught all growth is upward and expansive, that it's gain. So something bad has to have happened if our journey and central parts of us are slipping away and don't fit anymore, right? This is a big part of why churches set up college campus ministries. It's not the only reason, but it's a big one. They want to help young people resist deconstructing. They're trying to help them hold on to childhood, to hold on to the untested things. Now that they're being tested, ignore the test. Hold on to what you learn. They want to reinforce the idea that it's a sign of strong faith to disbelieve what others believe, to disbelieve something that's empirically true because it messes with or contradicts what needs to be true. This is a big reason why these ministries exist, or things like them. And there's a reason that they then set up a false choice, a false binary. You have to either choose the faith that you had as a kid or choose your mind. And that's always a false choice. Deconstructing is entirely normal, entirely necessary. It's incredibly difficult and scary if we believe that we're supposed to stay in the first phase our whole life. Or we believe everything was supposed to remain black and white, never gray. that what made sense to our young, inexperienced, untested minds, that was supposed to work and to be carried all the way through into the real world for the rest of our lives. If we believe those things, it's incredibly difficult to know what to do when you see that black swan. I can't possibly count how many times I have observed young parents over the years who, getting all the way through their 20s, college, whatever, they don't feel like they ever deconstructed. You know, they changed their mind on a few things, but they still have the same faith of their childhood, the same faith of their parents. There's no tension or friction there really. And then they have a baby. And they look at their baby one night right in the face, and everything changes. Everything they believed about love, hell, the meaning of life, all of it collapses and never reorganizes again. You don't have to have had a kid. How many of us just had some experience out in the world, away from home? It was like some light turned on. Everything shifted. And from then on, our friends and family, coworkers, our churches, they no longer felt like people we understood anymore mutually. No, we're not birds of a feather anymore. Made us variously want to stay silent so nobody knew what has happened inside of us, this scary, disorienting thing that has happened. We don't talk about it. Or it makes us argue. We talk about it all the time. We argue all the time because something unwhole within us is trying to convince others of our own thoughts, because that would make us feel vindicated and less alone, less afraid. Whatever, it's stayed in this deconstructed, disorienting phase, not for months, but for years. And it's wildly uncomfortable to have uncertainty on this level for this long. Wildly uncomfortable to say, I don't know, in the midst of other people who seem to get a sense of strength and purpose and meaning and hope out of saying, oh, I know everything. What questions do you have for me? Wildly uncomfortable to realize that if this part goes, if I give up this and then it's connected to this, it's like dominoes. It's like pulling the thread of a sweater. It all comes apart. And so maybe this helps you understand why churches and religion at large tries to keep everybody in the first phase while being scared of the second. Because pulling that thread will deconstruct what makes the church relevant in the first place. And many of us, we have found ourselves for years and years, decades, ping-ponging between construction, which feels like relief, to deconstruction. And a growing unease and tension is building inside of us. So let's go back to the disciples. They're with Jesus all the time. They can quote the Bible better than you, better than me. They're arguing about greatness and rank because power becomes more and more important the more uncertainty creeps in. The presence of Jesus in their life constantly is exposing in them that the only way they knew to live out their faith was by ascent, growing, domination, establishing control, dominion. So of course, we see them in other places in the Gospels talking about who's the alpha. Where's the hierarchy? Who's running a more predictable system? Of course, we see the disciples trying to stop an exorcism because the people performing it weren't on their team. Of course, we see them scolding parents for bringing children to Jesus's big serious gathering. Of course, they asked if it was okay if they could pray that God rained down fire on a Samaritan village because they disagreed with Jesus's message. Of course, they did those things. And of course, it helps us maybe better understand millions of modern Christians making daily bids for power, no matter who it puts in charge, as long as they get to share in that power, because it provides order. Or why the us versus them language is showing up so often in all the lawmaking by people who also go to church and hang around Jesus all the time. Or why we are so often seeing Christians applying dehumanizing labels to anybody who doesn't live like they do or believe like they do. Helps us understand maybe the reasoning for their bids for controlling others' belief and thought, from the home to school to television shows to government. Maybe we are seeing generally sincere people of faith who spent all kinds of time with Jesus, but they are living in a sustained panic, and it's growing because the Spirit of Christ just hasn't protected us from the modern world, from multiculturalism, from the sobering power of science on our beliefs. We have not been insulated from the deconstructing power of reality. And so the reaction is what it has always been. Oh no, who's the greatest here? Let's take control. Let's argue about who should have it. Who's the alpha? How many of us can we put together to take back? Let's take things back. Let's drag it backward. You remember when it all made sense, when it was good? That's what we do. And it's a mistake to think it's only it's out there. It's in their behaviors that we dislike. It could never be us. It's all of us. We have to understand this operates within our own hearts too. Our fears and our doubts and our suspicions, cynicism, causing us to project outward on others in the form of bids for control, getting frustrated and cutting other people off. We stop listening. We shut down curiosity. We just need to rush to judgment on people different than us within our own homes, all the way out. It largely stems from a desire to shrink back into a feeling of order. I want control because that would make everything feel better. But it only creates more fragmentation and more unhappiness. So let me talk about the third movement. Some of you have become well acquainted with this third space, and you already understand how it describes how you came through a season where in some ways it felt like a return to your faith, but it wasn't that. In many more ways, it felt like you entered something further out. There's a whole other thing. So some of you know this already. And some of you will enter into this as you come to recognize the Spirit is inviting you to do this. This isn't a bad thing. You've already started to do it because good or bad, it's what's true. And some of you will just go, and relax into it when you realize, this is the path. And some of you, I'll just simply say, I'm asking you, if you don't agree with this now, if you can't see this now, if this frightens you now, as it used to me, hold on to what I'm saying with humility and see if it resonates with you later in your life. The third phase includes what was, but has transcended it. And so we can call this latter season of our lives a new orientation. This is where we seem to revisit the same ideas, the same words, the same stories, the same issues, the same values, faith, relationships, the world, whatever. And yet we arrive here without the fear, without the need for control or perfectionism. We don't need the hierarchy. We come now ready to apply a far more nuanced and considered wisdom and grace for ourselves and others, and humility that we did not have access to before. Real humility. It's now as accepting and calm and as wild and as empowered as the Spirit herself. And we finally understand that old wisdom now. Remember, iron sharpens iron and one person sharpens another. Well, I sounded a little, you could hear my Midwest. Iron sharpens iron and one person sharpens another. Because how do you add sharpness to an iron blade? How do you gain sharpness? By loss, by taking away. Sharpness in the iron is the result of friction and loss. The sharpness of the iron is the fruit of gradually allowing what no longer serves you to be removed. And this generally comes by way of the frictions of being a human being in the real world up against and with other human beings. Because all metamorphosis is found on the other side of loss, friction, pain. Jesus even explains in successive stories, remember, what the kingdom of God is like. It's like a coin that first must be lost, a sheep that first must be displaced and lost, a father who must first lose and be alienated by his sons. Carl Jung said, every transformation demands as its precondition the ending of a world, the collapse of an old philosophy of life. Rather than fearing or avoiding through bids for control and avoidance, we're learning to allow the Spirit to teach us what can only be taught by long periods of time in the way of uncertainty and pain met with grace, of fear met with being shepherded through. You look back and go, wow, I have been brought through everything that hurt and that terrified me. Of loss being soothed with the love and the comfort of other people who refuse to get off your team. Regret and shame being held with real understanding, not simplistic quotes from the Bible or psychoanalysis, but real understanding. Lost certainty, encouraged with learning to embrace mystery and not feeling afraid about that. And so as we close, let's consider what we're trying to recognize or even enter into. This is not a renunciation of faith or people or God, Jesus, family. It's none of that. It's recognizing that the path of Christ eventually leads us to putting more down than we ever picked up. And that is going to be terrifying, and it's going to make the people around us uncomfortable. That's not why we do it. That's just the side effect. We are finding ourselves sharpened by the process of loss. And so to enter into this construction, this new construction, this reorientation of ourselves anew, we will find ourselves learning to embrace failure. Mistakes and setbacks that we've avoided with so much energy and passion, now we welcome as teachers of humility and wisdom. We'll find ourselves learning to let go, that cliche that you've heard a million times. Oh, now I understand what they were saying. Learning to let go, giving up on the felt need for control of a situation, a conversation, others' opinions of you or anything, the need to be right. We release our need to manage outcomes and even allow things to fall apart if they need to. We'll find ourselves learning to quiet the ego, not punish it or pretend it's not there, but to quiet it, giving less energy and focus into things like image and possessions or ranking other people or being ranked in others' eyes. We'll find ourselves learning to find meaning and purpose and to let ourselves decide things and prioritize things based on what has proven to be most important. Now that so many other things have proven not to be as important. Boy, we really clinged to them before, but they got filed away. That's the iron shavings on the ground. We lost those things. They fell away. We'll find ourselves learning to prioritize the language of our body. We still value the mind, but no longer serving it like a constantly yammering, anxious master. We'll let the wisdom come from the embodied self. That's why we do these, learning how to actually breathe, and eating well, and sleeping. We do these things as someone who respects themselves as a whole, rather than brains in a jar for Jesus. We'll find ourselves learning self-compassion, no longer repeating our parents' or our teachers' criticisms from all those years ago, those dismissive judgments that we've internalized toward ourselves. We just start cutting ourselves slack for being what we are and what we're not. Therefore, we'll have that resource to give to others. We cut others slack too. We'll find ourselves learning to drop performance and perfectionism so that we can connect with others on the basis of being, not on the basis of producing or impressing. The list goes on, but this represents how it will look, and it represents the kind of community we're seeking to be, built not of hierarchy or quest for power or control or spreading and taking. It's iron sharpening iron, to be honed in the ways of unconditional love and justice and wisdom and kindness, in ways that we simply weren't ready for before. Maybe you are now. So may we release our grip on the path of ascent, and instead recognize the lasting value of growing down, being honed in humility and in love, so that we might embrace the discomfort of uncertainty alongside the blessing of sincerity, and that we would see that what remains always, always, always is the love and the oneness of Christ. Amen.
I want to be where my feet are. I want to breathe the life around me. I want to listen as my heart beats right on time. I want to be where my feet are. I chase my worries, I flee my sorrows, but what you give me is now. So take my burdens and my tomorrows. I wanna be where my feet are. I wanna be where my feet are. I wanna breathe the life around me. I wanna listen as my heart beats right on time. I wanna be where my feet are. I run to capture the next horizon, but what you give me is here. I get no farther, and still I find you. I wanna be where my feet are. Ground below me is how you hold me. I wanna be where my feet are. The ground below me is how you hold me. I wanna be where my feet are. The ground below me is how you hold me. I wanna be where my feet are. The ground below me is how you hold me. I wanna be where my feet are.
If you would like to know more or get connected to Crosspointe, go to crosspointenc.org. If you're in need of care or assistance, go to crosspointe.org/care. And welcome home.